This is my Christian morality final. My initial understanding of morality. So, my initial understanding of morality was like a little picture of a devil on one shoulder that's trying to convince me to do something bad, and then on the other shoulder, a little picture of an angel, which is calling me to do the right thing. But this class helped me realize that it's not that simple, and it's not just like good and bad. Like sometimes it can be a mixture, and it's deciding what to do in those situations. Um, so the biblical Ten Commandments and modern Ten Commandments, there are three sections to the commandments: the universe, which are the commandments that are directly correlated with the divine; the family commandments, which have to do with how you treat your family; and finally, the society commandments that have to do with those who are outside of your family and who are not like part of those who are not God. So my modern Ten Commandments, under the universe section, I said, "Thou shalt protect the earth as thy sacred home," which calls for environmental awareness. It means treating the earth as a living thing rather than just something to use. Thou must find a connection to the creator. This calls on people to find a relationship with the creator or the divine, but it doesn't specify a way. So it's like whatever way really makes you feel connected. Um, Thou shalt take Mondays as a break from work. This is similar to the Sabbath day that is in the original Ten Commandments. And thou shalt show gratitude to the Creator, which calls on people to show gratitude towards the divine, which helps them both spiritually and physically. Under the family section, I said, "Thou shalt love thy sister," which means like cherish those close to you and really value your like family relationships. In the society section, I said, "Thou shalt not lie unless morally acceptable," which it calls on people to avoid lying, but there are certain instances where I think that it is okay to lie. Like if you're really trying to protect someone from great harm, thou shalt not gossip. Do not use words to destroy bonds with the person. Thou shalt not glorify perfection, which I feel like lots of people strive towards perfection, but what's perfect to one person may not be perfect to another. Thou shalt not value power, to avoid falling into the belief that power is equivalent to importance. And thou shalt not ignore the suffering, because the suffering are those who need the most. Um, and the original Ten Commandments, or those shall you shall not commit adultery, honor your father and mother, thou shalt not steal, you should not bear false witness, keep the Sabbath holy, you shall not kill, you shall not have other gods, you shall not murder, you shall not covet, no gods before me, you shall not make idols, do not murder, and do not steal. And I think that my modern Ten Commandments were very similar to the biblical Ten Commandments in that they call on someone to live a moral life. These are the six elements of a moral decision. The moral agent is the person who is making the moral decision or deciding to possibly make the moral decision. Moral actions is like the action that is taken that will be moral or will not be moral. The context is the circumstance of the event. So what's happening around like background information of the moral agent and the moral action. The motive is the reason the action is taken. The affected are the people that the decision affects, and the consequence is the result of the action, no matter if it is good or bad. Catholics are called to work for peace and justice, not only to avoid sin. and they believe that everyone is born with sin and baptism cleans that sin. So the picture in the corner shows original sin, where Adam is watching Eve be persuaded by the serpent to pick the fruit from the tree of wisdom and eat it, which created original sin, and now everyone is born. Catholics believe that everyone is born with this original sin, and that baptism will cleanse themselves. Free will. The Catholic view on free will is that free will comes from God, meaning that our active decisions are truly made by God. I personally disagree on this because I think that humans are able to make conscious decisions about various things. And if God was making all of our decisions, how could they vary so greatly? Because it's just one guy, and I get that he is like a super powerful divine creature figure, but I just don't see how the personality and the decisions could vary greatly, and also how could terrible decisions made by people who make really morally unjust decisions, like how could that happen if God created all of our decisions? My personal values and goals. So, my personal values focus the most on compassion. I have the goal to become a more compassionate person and actively treat others with dignity and respect. The image shows someone handing another person their heart, which represents compassion and treating others with love. I want to be able to give back to the community that gave me so much, and that means treating the poor with lots of compassion, which I try to do on a day-to-day basis, but I want to do more actively and more intentionally. Virtue and virtue ethics. Virtue ethics focuses on what kind of person you want to become, which is found in the Unit 5 slides. I found this extremely interesting because I often thought about ethics as like defining you as the person that you are today. And honestly, I just kind of thought about ethics as like the trolley problem. That's kind of all I knew about ethics. And this class really changed my perspective as I now see that virtue ethics shape the type of person that you are becoming. Um, and you don't have to be perfect yet, but it's just like kind of helping you make these moral decisions. It's like a guider, which I really valued. Community responsibility and the common good. Um, there are three key elements of the common good: respect for the human person, social well-being and development, and peace and security. The one that I want to focus most on is respect for the human person because I think every single person is kind of built with the same potential for good. And some people have the right space to cultivate that possibility for good and turn it into something, and some people aren't raised in the right space to cultivate that goodness. But we were all made by God and we were all made in his image. So it's really important to respect all people, even if their actions might hurt us. The image in the corner shows how everyone is working towards one goal, and everyone has a different skill set and everyone is doing something different, but they're all trying to power the heart light bulb, which would be the common good, which means that everyone is thriving. Conscious formation. The conscience forms from the people around you and the communities that are in your life. The Catechism of the Catholic Church defines conscience as a judgment of reason whereby the human person recognizes the moral quality of a concrete act. And I agree with this definition because it encapsulates how conscience works. Um, the conscience is constantly being modified due to our surroundings and who we're surrounding ourselves with, but at its base, it's trying to tell us how to live a more moral life. Catholic social teaching. The Catholic social teaching of rights and responsibilities says human dignity can be protected and a healthy community can be achieved only if human rights are protected and responsibilities are met, um, which I think is really powerful as we need to be treating every human with the same amount of dignity and giving the people their natural human rights and like protecting this with our responsibilities as people who are more well off. The image shows that rights and responsibilities need to be equalized. Um, because if you don't take responsibility for rights, then neither thing is gonna happen. Rights aren't gonna happen and your responsibility is going to crumble. So, thank you so much for listening to my Christian morality final. I hope you had a good summer. And here's my works cited.